Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be reviewing They, Them, a movie that has been causing a lot of controversy, it seems. And honestly, based off some of the stuff I'm hearing people say, there's a lot of people that are kind of hating on this movie and a lot of people that are loving this movie. Some of the things and some of the controversy seems to be coming from people who I don't even know if they've seen the movie. It's like people just look at the title and there's a certain group of people that are praising the movie just because of what the titles is. And there's a certain group of people who are just going after the movie based off the title. But anyway, it interests me. I mean, a week ago, I had never even heard of this movie, They, Them. And then all of a sudden, over the weekend, it's all I was hearing about. It's just this controversy, and then these people, like, attacking each other. And I was like, you know what? I have Peacock as a streaming service. Let me load this movie up and watch it. And listen, this movie's not very good. Plain and simple, it's not very good. And this movie's kind of a tale of two separate movies. The first 75 minutes of this movie is almost entirely different than the last half an hour of this movie. It's really quite strange. Like, the first 75 minutes kind of meanders along. You don't really feel like you have... It feels like a bunch of scenes kind of just put together just for the sake of scenes just happening without much plot actually happening, like, with the scenes. Like, and it's not, I don't think it has anything to do with the way the movie was edited. I think it's just the way the screenplay was written. So, you know, you make this movie and nothing is really happening. The story is just kind of meandering along. And I mean, in short, this movie's about an LGBTQ group of people, mostly teenagers, some older teenagers as well, that go into a conversion camp. And the head of the camp is Kevin Bacon, who... Kevin Bacon is the best part of this movie. The scenes that I'm talking about that just meander along, the only reason that some of those scenes are even watchable is because Kevin Bacon is in the scene, and and just his acting, and not just his acting, but just his presence in the movie. He has this tone of, even when he's just standing there, he just looks so villainous and just so menacing on the screen with just his body language itself. He makes the scene watchable in that aspect. But besides Kevin Bacon in this movie, there's just not too many other redeeming qualities in the first 75 minutes. Now, in the first 75 minutes of this movie, the best way I can explain it is this is basically... I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, this is like a Friday the 13th ripoff. And me, myself, personally, like, some of you may hear me say that, and you might get kind of excited, like, oh, is it like Friday the 13th? To me, that's not a good thing. I don't think the Friday the 13th movies are really that great. I know they're not really supposed to be great. They're really like these corny movies that are really just all about the way Jason Voorhees kills people. But there's even a point in this movie, They, Them, where a character even brings up Jason Voorhees, and at that point I'm like sitting there rolling my eyes, but thank God when that was brought up, that was towards the end of the part of the movie that wasn't really good. So once you get to about 75 minutes into the movie, there's kind of a switch and more stuff starts to actually happen, more plot points start to happen, and then the last half an hour of the movie, it happens all fast, but it's something that I wish the whole movie kind of would have done in general, because the reason I think I have such a negative feeling about this movie is just because it did take him basically until the last half an hour for really anything to really start happening. And between that, we got acting that's not very good, scenes that are just meandering along, and then Kevin Bacon, which is the only thing really holding this movie together. And characters making stupid decisions, like they're sitting there, and before anybody even knows that there's like a murderer going on around here at the camp, before anybody even knows that, people are just like they don't even talk about escaping. Like, you would think, oh, you don't want to be at a conversion camp? Literally walk away. But nobody brings that up. But when there's a murderer on the loose, that's the only time somebody actually brings up running away, and then somebody goes, oh, but we can't run away, there's a murderer on the loose. And it's like, why didn't you run away before the murderer was on the campus? It's just, it's one of those things, it's kind of frustrating. It's writing that's frustrating, and if you like those Friday the 13th type movies, you probably won't care too much, because it's in essence kind of like that. Now, what happens after 75 minutes, it really kind of kicks off the last half an hour, is you finally get a scene in this movie that involves conversion therapy, and that scene is really well done. It's actually the only kind of part in this movie that I feel like actually has much tension, and it's done really, really well. You're sitting there and you're kind of like, oh my god, this is... Because it shows you a lot more than you probably thought a movie would show you, but based off the first 75 minutes of this movie, and then all of a sudden you got this conversion therapy scene, it's just like, why couldn't the rest of this movie have just been like the last half an hour? The third act of this movie is actually pretty good. The reason the last half an hour of this movie is not great, though, is because there is a twist that I think is just absolutely ridiculous. I think it's dumb. A lot of you, if you go and watch this movie, you're probably going to see the twist coming. Even if you don't see it coming, when it finally comes, you're going to be like, dude, this is absolutely ridiculous. And then some of the dialogue that happens it's just like, ugh. This movie is so frustrating on all fronts. And I'll say this, if you like the Friday the 13th movies, if that's like something that you really just want some corny movie that maybe has some good kills, you might like this movie. All right, and I only say might because this movie doesn't really get into a lot of the gory, more slasher elements until about the third act of the movie. So you're going to be watching a movie that opens the first 5 minutes, opens with a slasher scene, and then it's gonna meander along until the third act. So I don't know. It's hard. Even if you like the Friday the 13th movies, I'm not sure if I could really just recommend this to you. So I got to kind of put that out there. But ultimately, I just think this movie was a waste of time. I just sat there and finished it because I was honestly kind of just wondering. I was like, okay, what's exactly going to happen? Because about 45 minutes into the movie, I paused it and I was like, do I even want to finish this? And I thought to myself, but I kind of just want to see if this movie actually gets better. And then I watched it, and yes, the last half an hour does get better, but ultimately, as just a full movie itself, it was just disappointing because the premise itself is actually a really cool premise. A conversion camp and everything for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people, and what exactly that would be like, and the horror element that can come with that. And it's too bad that the execution didn't really land until the third act of the movie. But with all that being said, this movie is streaming on Peacock, and if you have Peacock and if you just want to watch a movie that can just maybe pass the time by or whatever, I mean, this movie's an hour and 40 minutes long. Knock yourself out. If you're not a subscriber of Peacock, I would not use a free trial just to watch this movie, and I wouldn't use a paid subscription to watch this movie. I just don't think this is the type of movie that's worth using a free trial or a paid subscription on to watch. But yeah, if you have Peacock, by all means, knock yourself out. And listen, if any of you guys have seen They Them, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you one of those people that are just on completely opposite sides? Did you find anything you liked about it? Once again, I thought the third act was decent, but the twist just really threw me off. But anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching the video, and I hope to see you back in my next review.